I've spoken at thousands of events around the world, and most of the time, I'm really confident when I'm going up on stage. and this is, in fact, in situations where I've spoken in front of tens of thousands of people in huge arenas. And this TED Talk terrified me more in the last 4 hours than it has for a long time speaking. Because in most of the other conferences I'm going to, I know the subject matter cold. I look through the agenda of who's talking, and I know those people. I know what they're going to say. And while I knew the people who were going to talk just from the agendas and things that we had distributed as speakers, it was terrifying to come into this room and not know what was going to be said and how was my message going to stack up there. And so hopefully my message stacks up well for you. A lot has been written in the last year about upward mobility. And there's a lot of people out there who think that the American dream is dead. And our speaker from North Korea would beg to disagree, I think. But I wanted to share something about how I believe upward mobility is not dead, and how specifically those of us who come from places like Idaho have a path forward to do something that can be rewarding at a personal level and also at an economic level as well. So most of the other folks didn't provide a resume, but I'm doing it because it's core to my message. And so who is this Aaron Turner guy? If you haven't met me before, I am a computer security expert. I have worked in 45 countries around the world. I'm a published author. I get about 150 speaking requests a year, and I take about 12 of those, all for pay except for this TED one. I'm an entrepreneur. I've started many businesses. I serve on the boards of directors of many businesses. I am an advisor to public and private leaders around the world. What most of my clients don't know about me is that I was raised in a town of 200 people in southern Idaho. I went to a 2-room schoolhouse. I didn't leave the Intermountain West until I was 15 years old. I have no formal education in the profession that I make my living at today. And there's lots more. So how did this kid from a little teeny tiny town end up doing the things that I have so far? My formal titles right now: I'm the founder and CEO of the IntegraCell Group. That's a company that focuses on mobile security, securing mobile technology. I'm a partner in a management consulting firm called Aid and Lair Group. I'm the co-founder of a local business called Biologic. They take potato starch and turn it into biodegradable plastic. I am an industry analyst for IONS Research. I'm the founder and chief technologist of Terrio, and I'm an independent board member of a local business called TextWire. So when people ask me, what do you do for a living? It's hard for me to answer. My resume doesn't really meet the classical requirements of a linear thing that is just one thing. And so I wanted to share with you how I managed to do this in a way, hopefully, that you can create a map so you can do the things that you can find rewarding. So let's connect some dots here. So Albion, Idaho was where it all started, population 200. It's a little teeny tiny town south of Burley, Idaho. I graduated from Skyline High School here, went on to go to law school. I have an undergraduate degree from BYU in Provo in Spanish linguistics. I was a cybersecurity researcher for the US government. I led many teams at Microsoft. I've been the CEO of a venture-backed startup. I'm a technology inventor to this day. And now I'm in Idaho Falls, Idaho. So how do we connect all of these things? So let's start from the beginning. For the first 9 years of my life, this was my world. Albion, Idaho, 4 blocks on a good day, okay? My house was right there. My dad worked in the bank right there. This was my school, and this was the church, okay? My entire life was there. And I thought that was life was. I mean, when you are a child, that's what it is. So here's a perspective of where Albion's at. Here's a picture of the 2-room schoolhouse. The 2 rooms were kindergarten through 3rd grade in one, and then 4th, 5th, and 6th in the other. What was great about this experience, and what I think was one of the keys to me starting on the process of constant learning and constantly evolving, was my teacher from kindergarten to 3rd grade let me sit with whatever group I wanted to, as long as I got the work done. So if I wanted to sit with the third graders, I could. If I wanted to go back to the kindergartners, I could. Whatever. And so it was a very open learning environment. Now here's a map of all the countries that I've worked in. 45 countries. So taking from that 4 square blocks of Albion, Idaho, to 45 countries around the world, what does this mean? And as I was listening to the other talks, this was the slide that I kept coming back to. I listened to the SensoryScape one. I can tell you the best food I ate in every single one of those countries. I can tell you, in every country I go to, I try to go to a museum and experience something that's local there. And so these were the living opportunities that I had to be able to expand myself and do interesting work and basically expand my horizons. Now let's take a look at my professional life. This was the scene of my first job. To talk to you about just how far I climbed when it comes to social mobility. When I was a teenager, my father was a banker, and he went through the savings and loan crisis and was underemployed for a series of years. As a result, our family was not economically well off. At the age of 14, our family qualified for a program that the state of Idaho ran that basically waived the minimum age requirement for work. And so at the age of 14, I could go out and start working. I could work 20 hours a week. This was the place where I started working. I cleaned toilets at the rec center here in town. So that was my first job. And it taught me the value of work, got to meet some very interesting people. First time I ever interacted with an African-American person, he was my boss. And it was a great opportunity to kind of just see the community. Well, so from cleaning toilets at the rec center, here's a list of the companies that I've worked for in the last 5 years, either on a consulting basis or an advisor. It's most of the Fortune 500. So let's connect those dots. How did that happen? It comes down to something that I've tried to coalesce down to personal and professional momentum. First, be passionate about something. That's a problem that I've never had in my life. I've always been passionate. But then, the secret sauce that I apply to that is how do you apply technology to that passion? And not just technology like computers or whatever, but any technology. Any form of automation, any form of technology that may help do that job or follow your passion more efficiently or to greater satisfaction. The second point, look for emerging industries. It's kind of like the gold rush. If you're the first one there, you get to set the rules. And that's one of the things that I focused on very early in my career was that I didn't want to follow someone else's rules. I wanted to build my own. The third point, be ready to take risks and be ready to fail epically over and over and over. Let me walk you through this process. And this is something that I've followed throughout my life many times over the last 2 decades. So I'm sorry for the eye chart. When we did these slides, I wasn't sure what size of screen we were going to have. And so I'll use the bubbles just to walk you through the path. And I'll read them to you so you don't have to strain your eyes. Okay? So I served an LDS mission in Mexico. Come home. Had a real passion for maybe doing something in the law because I thought maybe a legal profession would be good. So I said, what's the fastest route from point A to point B? Well, I was really good at Spanish. For some reason, Spanish language was not a problem for me. So I went and got a degree in Spanish linguistics because it was easy. During the course of that Spanish linguistics degree, though, I'd always been a tinkerer with computers. I mean, the death of Radio Shack was very sad to me because that was a place where I hung out. I bought Heathkits. I bought the boards to put those computers together. And so when I'm studying Spanish, I get this idea. I'm like, maybe if I take technology, at that time there was a new technology back in 1994 that had just been invented called Network News Transport Protocol, NNTP. This is what we know as news groups or discussion forums now. And so I set up an NNTP server, and I wanted all of the different specialists in linguistics around the world to come to my server and discuss why is it that people in Mexico use different words than people in Argentina. And so we had a vibrant community. It was running one of the first servers on the internet to do so. Well, unfortunately, I hadn't met my good friend Marcus Raynham at that time. Marcus Raynham invented the internet firewall. And so I installed this server without a firewall. Within 2 weeks, a group of individuals got onto my server, saw how much storage space I had on it, which at that time was 500 megabytes, which was a lot. And they decided to upload their photo collection to my server. Unfortunately, said photo collection was a bunch of barnyard porn, okay? Not just porn, but barnyard porn. When you're attending a private religious institution like BYU, that's not recommended if you want to graduate, okay? I was guilty until proven innocent. I had to prove my innocence. So as the result of that hack, I had to go and prove that I didn't do it. I conducted, to my knowledge, one of the first internet investigations outside of the Department of Defense to protect my good name. I proved that it was a bunch of people from Cal Berkeley who basically thought it would be a funny joke to put those pictures on a BYU server. They proceeded to laugh a lot. I didn't. But that's how I started on this path. That moment of failure was the path that I got on to say, I'm going to be good at doing this because nobody else is doing it yet. And so I went from having a server that was hacked to hiring myself out at nights and weekends to hacking other people's servers for pay. So I became a white hat hacker, where I would go and hack into servers. By this time, I'm going to law school. And during law school, I'm going through this process of trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I end up dropping out of law school because I hated it. And if you want to hear a really interesting story about why, I'll be happy to tell you when I have more time. But I ended up dropping out of law school, starting my first tech company, which failed horribly, and I had to declare bankruptcy at the ripe old age of 26. But that set me up to get a job running Microsoft's internet division for Latin America. And that set up 8 years of my life where I got to fail over and over again, but on Bill Gates' dime, okay? And it was an amazing experience. While I was there, they let us, it was mentioned in one of the talks about having 20% of your free time. At Microsoft at the time, that was the case. I got to help design Halo, the video game, in my free time. I got to do all sorts of crazy things that I never would have been exposed to while I was basically moving from one research project to another. I was making a living doing X, but in my nights and weekends, I was researching Y. And that Y was the next thing. Email security. I knew more about email security than anybody at that time. And this was years before email became popular. Database security, mobile security. I always tried to stay a few years ahead of the technology curve. So what I want to share with you is called the momentum pendulum. You always have to be doing something for yourself. You got a job during the day? That's great. It doesn't have to occupy your thoughts at night. You should be going out and searching for something that you find interesting, applying yourself to that, applying technology to it, and then letting that ball go. And sometimes that pendulum is going to crash against a wall and it's going to fail horribly. Go back to the drawing board. Reinvest. Take a look at it. See what else you can do to take that step. And for me, I've been letting these pendulums go. For me, I've probably made hundreds of investments in myself, and only maybe 4 have paid off economically. But each time that I've made that investment, I've taken a step back, reevaluated what's an opportunity, and then let that pendulum fall. And sometimes it pays off. So, defining success on a macro scale. Find something you're passionate about. Apply technology in some way. Look for new areas where you can write the rules, and then stack the deck in your favor. And then never fear failure. Live in a way that allows you to fail epically without actually having to lose everything. So for me, this recipe for success has paid off. I live a non-traditional life, okay? When I meet people at my kids' school and they ask me, what do you do for a living? How do I explain this, right? And so I usually end up saying, well, you know what Roto-Rooter is? I'm kind of like Roto-Rooter for the internet. When something really bad happens, people call me. And it's played out okay. I've managed to meet my own personal and financial goals well. I've been able to support my family. I've been able to have a great life. At times, I haven't been able to spend as much time with my family as I wanted because there's not very much work here in Idaho Falls to do. And so I spend a lot of my time on the road. But this is my safety net. Okay, so my recommendation to anyone who wants to take risks is you've got to have a strong one of these. And this is my wife and 3 daughters. They're the ones who basically are there to catch me when I fall. And so what I'm trying to tell you is it doesn't matter where you came from. It matters where you're going. And getting that momentum to get somewhere valuable is about taking that momentum pendulum, swinging it back, making an investment, letting it go. And when the ball crashes against the wall when you let it go, you have to have people like this to help pick you up. That's what I wanted to share with you. Have a great night.